This is light work. Come on, spill the tea. Yeah. Ooh.
Hey y'all,
What's good?
I'm Laura.
I'm Dee, and welcome to Spill the Tea with Laura and Dee.
What's our topic today?
I'm glad you asked. Our Candid Convo for today is Hot or Hype? Motivated sellers won't wait forever.
Oh, that's a good one.
Starting straight.
Sellers are starting to pull their houses off the market. We are seeing a lot more withdrawals and or expires. And I'll say we're seeing a lot more withdrawals right now. So what does that mean for buyers? It's an important time for buyers right now. I have a lot of clients who are wrestling with the thought of, should I sell? Because they see how much less they're going to get today than they were, say, 6 months ago or a year ago.
Right.
But then when we start talking about what they're going to get when they buy, like they're ready to list their house and drop the price, cut, slash and be a buyer in this market. I think if you're a buyer in this market, you're lucky. Mm-hmm. I don't know that we're going to see this kind of dip or drop once the market evens out. Making a move as a buyer right now leaves you with a lot of leverage. Mm-hmm. Right? And so if you're making a smart move in this market, right? If you're buying in this market, my opinion is sellers are very attached to their price point, right? So they don't want to take less for their house.
Right.
And I think they don't want to take less. They don't want their neighbors mad at them, right? Like there's this mental, emotional stress that goes along with selling my house. Oh, I can't take $175,000 for my house, but I can take $190,000 and give $20,000 back in contingencies. Same net for the seller.
Right.
Right?
Right.
But on paper, right now, they have to see that higher price point.
Right.
So as a buyer, how do you position yourselves correct in this market? And how do you make sure you take advantage of where we are today? One, it's getting ready to buy. I talked to a client yesterday who she bought and then she's going to sell or potentially rent. So we're talking about what we're doing with her house right now.
Right.
And she said, well, Laura, if you think houses are going to go down, why did I buy this month? Why didn't I wait till next month? I said, well, we don't have a crystal ball and we don't know when prices are going to turn around.
Right.
So if you're an active buyer in this market right now and you're looking to obtain a deal, don't focus on the price you pay for the house. It's going to appraise, right? Like the price of the home is not my fear.
Right.
Because there's comps, right? Because homes are going backwards right now. So you got comps that are going to be higher than what you're probably going to pay for the house.
Right.
But really hit the seller up in the contingencies, right? A seller is more likely to give you a lot more money back in contingencies than they are to come off that price, because to come off that price hurts.
Right.
They don't look at why they don't look at their bottom line, I don't know. But to have them come off their contingencies, if you get them to pay all the closing costs and get them to buy down your mortgage rate, sure, you might have saved $5,000 on the purchase price today if you're looking at your decision as a one-step process. What do I do and how does it affect me today? But then if you look at your purchase over the long haul, buying that interest rate down, I think for EJ, it saved her almost $200 a month. She's going to continue to pay that $200 a month.
Right.
And pay her mortgage off faster.
Right.
Right. And so that $200 a month is $2,400 a year.
Right.
So if we would have taken the price point down $10,000 in 4 years, she'd have eaten up all that savings, right? Mm-hmm. And so now, because she's going to make the payments for longer, she's going to save more long term. So as a buyer right now, pay what the seller wants, right? Let them have that win.
Right.
Right? You get the win by having the seller pay all your agent's compensation, have the seller pay down that 2-1 buy down or point buy down, have the seller pay for a termite bond.
Right.
Those we haven't seen in forever. And you live in Georgia, right? Like there's termites.
Right.
Make sure your home is protected. Pay for a home warranty. Have the seller pay for that, right? Older appliances in the house, great. You get the seller to give you $5,000 off. Well, guess what? If you have to replace the stove,
that's $5,000.
Like especially like a cooktop, like it's $5,000. I mean, mine was $2,500. My double oven, I think, was like $4,000.
Right.
Right. I had a home warranty, and the home warranty was $100 deductible.
Right.
And the seller paid for the home warranty. And so those are the kind of strategies as a buyer that really should come back right now in your negotiations.
Right.
Don't worry about your price point so much.
Right. So I've been finding it interesting. I see a lot of like the signs that are up on the the realtor signs that say like 0% down mortgages. To your point, like I'm finding it's almost like a trend right now to increase the price a little bit more over the actual purchase price in order to still get, to your point, the seller the price that they want.
That is a
But then
huge
still getting enough concessions to where you can almost kind of play around with what comes at the closing table. It's really interesting what we're seeing there, but it's
well,
just like
sellers have the misconception that it is best to price their home where a buyer has the ability to negotiate with them.
Mhm.
They want to price it higher than what their bottom line
Oh,
is.
so they negotiate down.
So they
Right.
negotiate down. And as a buyer, like take full advantage of that in this market, because a smart seller, right? A seller working with a very strong agent and an agent who understands this kind of market is not going to price a listing where a buyer has room to negotiate.
Right.
They're going to price that listing where buyers are going to compete because it's going to look like the seller has already done all the negotiating for you on the front end.
Right.
And then all of a sudden the buyer sees a deal. What do we do when we see a deal? Like, y'all, if a store is going out of business, you go in it even if you don't shop there. There might be a deal. Selling, as a buyer, don't go after those. Don't go after the seller that understands how to price their home in this market.
Right.
Because if you go after those sellers, if that's the home that you pick, you're getting no deal.
Right.
If you go after the sellers who want the room to negotiate,
Mm-hmm.
they've given you a big, huge sign that says, hey, listen, I'm a sucker. And I want to give my house to you, and I want to give you a lot of contingencies.
So, as a buyer, how would you identify that? Right? Because I understand what you're talking about. You're talking about like being strategic with the listing, because the listing is just like, that's why when you look at the MLS, it's like they have the listing price and then the sale price. It's like the listing price is just a number, it's a strategy.
Right now, we're
game.
seeing 96% of list price is the average sales price in Georgia. So, to your point, what's the strategy?
Right.
Or in Atlanta. So,
And
first off,
what you're talking about is listing somewhere where you think it's going to bring more traffic. And that's your goal in sales, is more traffic.
more traffic.
Because then at that point, your traffic sees the traffic and you're like, okay, it says
Chick-fil-A.
165, so I have to
Urgency.
add an extra 5, right? You know what? There was a bunch of people in there. Let's just give them an extra $10,000.
There you go. There you go. It's urgency, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why does Chick-fil-A have a line around the building at lunchtime every single day and McDonald's doesn't, right?
Chick-fil-A.
Well, it's because they provide value.
Right.
So when you're pricing your home, if you don't want buyers to take advantage of you, if you don't want to be the sucker for the buyer, right? Then at that point, you need to price your home to where it is the most valuable home in the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get me wrong. That doesn't always mean being the cheapest home in the neighborhood.
Right.
That people hear this and come out of my mouth, and all of a sudden they put up a wall and they're like, no, I don't want to be the cheapest.
Mm-hmm.
You need to be the most valuable home.
Right.
Does that mean your finishes are more valuable? Does that mean you've got better hardware in the house? Does that mean the price is better? Does that mean you have a basement and nobody else has a basement? Does that mean your basement's finished and nobody else's basement's finished? The value can come from a lot of places.
Right.
So as a buyer, what are you looking for? Well, first things first, if you're targeting a particular neighborhood, have your realtor look at what homes are selling versus what homes are listed for.
Right.
If homes are selling for 96% of list price and that home is priced similar to everything else, you as the buyer know that it's not going to sell until they take 4% off that price. Right? So if it's $100,000, you're getting it for $96,000. You know that immediately.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm working with a buyer and they're really looking for a deal in this market, we have certain things that we put on the search. So one of the things that we have on our search, the home must be on the market for more than 35 days. Okay. After 30 days, sellers start doing like this. What's wrong with my house? Why you don't like my house? What's wrong with my house? Why is there no buyers?
They start to like drop their price, so that's the price that's
Correct.
they're actually willing to pay.
Correct. And so after 30 days, most of the time is when you start to see your first price reductions come in, right? Because the seller's like, even if the agent's not suggesting it, The seller is starting to. So as a buyer, look for properties that have been on market for more than 30 days.
Right.
Another thing that I find really great for buyers, find the house, like watch a house. If there's a house you've been watching, it's been on market for 90 days, for 120 days. Most agents do a 90-day or a 6-month contract, right?
Right. And then after that,
And then after that, it's going to expire.
You just call them motherfuckers.
Well, there's that. I mean, so that's something else that we're doing. So there's two
Right.
strategies in going after these houses that are off market. The sellers raise their hand, say, I want to sell my house. One of the biggest things that we do for our clients is we'll look back 30 days. If there's nothing on the market or we know this client really wants a deal, I'll send them houses that were listed 30 days ago.
Right.
I pick up that phone. Hey, Mr. Seller, I have a buyer who's interested in your home. They just hit the market. Nothing that is on the market currently fits their bill.
Right.
We went back, looked at homes that were on the market over the last, say, 3 to 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
Your home was one of the ones that my buyer is interested in. All of a sudden, as a buyer, your agent is now talking to a seller who potentially may not be paying up listing agent compensation now.
Right.
So all of a sudden, there may not be an agent on that transaction. And as the buyer, you just freed up, or the buyer's agent, you just freed up 3%.
Right.
3% is $3,000 for every 100,000.
Mm-hmm.
Right? All of a sudden, if you're at $500,000, that's $15,000 that potentially just went back in your pocket as a buyer.
Right.
Because the seller's like, oh, I don't have a seller's agent. So there's $15,000 that they start negotiating with themselves before you even send them an offer or see the house. It's like they already start, oh, I can get rid of that. It's not a loss at this point.
Right.
I'm netting the same amount of money.
Right.
Whether the house is off market or potentially relisted, right?
Mm-hmm.
When the seller goes listed that second time, hopefully the new agent has had a really strong conversation with that seller.
Right.
The seller has now had 60, 90, 120 days to test the market with someone else. And hopefully that second agent has a little bit better script and has a little bit better way to define what the market truly is. Because once a seller understands what they're selling in and they've accepted, all of a sudden the buyer loses a lot of the negotiating power.
Right.
Right? Because then the seller comes from an emotional posture to a logical posture.
Right.
We want to catch those sellers when they're in that emotional posture.
Right.
When they're upset, they're stomping, their feet are on the ground, right? So looking at those houses that have been listed for a long period of time is something that really going to play in your best interest. And then let the seller know there's a few houses you have your eye on.
Right.
Right? Use what the sellers have been using against you guys as buyers for years. I have 4 other buyers. What are you bringing to the table?
Right.
Well, all of a sudden, Mr. Seller, your cover letter, your agent should be writing a cover letter. Hey, Mr. Seller, we are super excited to make an offer on your home. Right now, my client is reviewing 4 homes. Your home is their number 1. Here's our offer and here's why. And when I say write a love letter, y'all, I don't mean, hey, I'm Christian and I go to the church down the street and I got a little boy and a little girl. No. That goes against all of our rules and regulations and ethics. Okay, so don't do that. But what I am talking about is write a letter based on what other sellers and buyers are doing in the market, right? Hey, Mr. Seller, I know your house priced at $550, but your neighbor sold for $462. So here's my comp. These people in your neighborhood paid X. That's why we are asking for this. And then just be willing to play a little bit of hardball. Right. Again, that contract may expire, that offer may expire today at 12 o'clock. Let the seller go through another weekend with no more showings and no more. Now, when you make the offer as a buyer, understand you are giving the seller a heads up, right? So when you make the offer from $500 down to $475, all of a sudden you may see that price drop to $485, right? A lot of times the seller will get close to your offer price. So know that as well. And if it's a house that you're very interested in, it's something that you really want to secure, make sure you've got a strategy for that as well. Because once you give the offer, you do show a little bit of your hand.
Right.
Offer smart.
I like when you talk about adding value. I've always had an interesting methodology on like how to define that. I always try and put something in numbers. And so it's like value would be anything over what's expected, right? So like if you put that into terms, like if you think about McDonald's versus Chick-fil-A, your example, like McDonald's follows FDA as far as we know, like follows like right, like they're following right, they're following all the appropriate rules that they're following. But to your point, for Chick-fil-A, it's like they're following those same rules, plus they're doing this.
Well, it's a different business model. And I think that that's important to think about when you hire a realtor.
Exactly, yeah.
right?
Because it's the same thing with the homes. Like you just said, as far as like calling an expired listing,
Mhm.
that's valuable to that expired seller
Correct.
because they are still a motivated seller. They just didn't sell their home.
Correct. Just because it didn't sell doesn't mean they don't want to.
Right.
Right.
Right. So,
Right.
but that adds value. It's almost like that you go above and beyond. Like I feel like people used to make fun of me at school. They're like, "Oh, you're like you go
You're
above
goody.
and beyond,
You're goody
and you
two
have to do
shoes.
all of
You're
this." And I'm
sucking
like,
up.
I thought it was just called value. Like
It is.
people pay for this when we get older.
It is. As a seller, finding the value is important, right?
Of
In your
course.
listing right now.
Of
It's the
course.
number one thing to do. You know, I sold a house yesterday. We were listed at 420, full price offer, very few contingencies. We had a very aggressive posture in the market.
Hmm.
And the neighbor's house went up for sale and they listed their house for 415 and it's under contract. I don't know where it's going to close out at and what their contingencies look like. And my seller's like, well, maybe we listed a little bit too low. And the only difference between the two properties is my seller has an above ground pool, not super valuable. Okay. It looks good. They've done a phenomenal job with the deck around it and the things.
Right.
The husband's a contractor. He did it. It's a beautiful above ground pool, probably the prettiest above ground pool I've ever seen.
But to your point earlier, in this market right now, you're not going to get that full value. That'd be a house that you stay in.
Correct.
Mhm.
Correct. And then they have more than just a concrete 10 by 10 slab, right? The husband, again, a builder, a contractor, put this beautiful, magnificent deck on the backside of their house. In certain markets, in a strong seller's market, you would get the value of that deck.
Mm-hmm.
In this, it's not actually a buyer's market. It feels like a buyer's market. We're not
In
even
this confusing ass market.
There you go, confusing ass market because it's actually still a seller's market. Believe it or not,
And it's so weird.
Based
It's so
on
weird.
numbers, it's still a seller's market because we
Right.
have 4.7 months worth of inventory.
Right.
5 months to 7 months is a neutral market. Anything over 7 is considered a buyer's market.
Laura's gonna have to update that book.
Yeah, I agree. Like that's terrible. To me, anything over 3 months is a buyer's market.
Right.
Because all of a sudden sellers start losing the power of negotiation and urgency to sell. There's more houses on the market, right? Supply and demand.
Mm-hmm.
But some smart person made that the rules. As we were going through this, my sellers only paid 2% buyer's agent compensation. That means they saved 1% there. They paid a very small amount of closing and potentially maybe could have pushed back on that a little bit. I think they'd have paid some closing because everybody in their market's paying closing, but we paid $5,000 in closing, which is less than everybody else. Everybody else is paying 8 to 10 in their market. Right. So we still paid less. Maybe we could have pushed back just a little bit. We were not on market, but for 1 week, like everything went well. Everything moved forward. Could we have squeezed out a little bit more? Potentially. But I think that listing it over where we would have listed it would have resulted in a lot more days on market. Right.
Days on market hurts.
They cost. This family owns 2 houses. Right? They bought a house, renovated it. Now they're living in that house and they have to sell this one. And so for 9 months, they've been carrying the cost of both houses because it took,
9 months.
that's how long it took them to renovate. It's kind of one of those things where as a seller, being strategic will lend you a buyer that doesn't have a lot of negotiation power because you're making the buyers compete.
Right.
As a buyer, you're looking for the sellers that are just letting you negotiate. Go take full advantage of it. I mean, I'm watching some pretty big price drops. I was on a call yesterday. Somebody got one of their sellers to drop $250,000.
What's the
1.8?
Okay,
not that high. Not that high in the whole grand scheme of things. I mean, to come off $250,000 on a 1.8. It's a lot. That's a big percentage of your original list price.
I know we're not really talking about sellers, so I won't dwell here at all. But does that change the listing strategies going forward? Because like one of the ones that I used to like was as far as getting a house sold. Because for me, I'm not gonna sit here and trip on the price that I get. I'm more on like
bottom line.
Get this away from me. Right. We've decided to sell. It's gone. Let's go. For me, I really like the monitor the traffic after the first week or two. And then from there, every week you drop it by a predefined amount until you get to a certain price. And then at that point, you have a strategy for that as well.
Correct. You know, as a buyer, you're asking who do you look for? So take my listing right now that's sitting for a little bit. It's the only one we've had all year that's sitting. It's making me crazy. I don't like a sitting listing. I'm very proud of my average day on market in 2025. It blows everybody else's out of the water. So this one's starting to kind of like grate on my nerves a little bit.
Right.
But there are certain markets where you're just waiting. As far as this particular property
Decatur.
goes, Yeah, Decatur's a big one. They're in Lawrenceville, and they're in a lower price in Lawrenceville, and there's a lot of for sales in their price point, right?
Lawrenceville is like that right now too.
Lawrenceville is pretty saturated.
That's good to know.
And so it's a good area to buy in right now for sure. But right now they have 9 other houses for sale in their market. So how do we position ourselves to look the best?
Right,
if I'm a buyer,
competition.
right? To be honest, if I'm a buyer right now, I am going after my listing. Okay. Every other listing, there's 5 in their neighborhood and 4 in the neighborhood next door to them. But the neighborhood next door is totally comparable.
Right.
Right. The other neighborhood's a little more expensive. So all of a sudden my neighborhood looks better because of that, right? Because people don't care if you're in a townhome, they don't care if it's brick or siding on the outside.
Right.
First time home buyer price points, they're looking at the number, not necessarily the aesthetics. So for me, in my opinion, we are the most attractive because we're a middle unit. We've been on market a little bit longer than the other unit that's like us, 2 bedrooms, 2 baths with a basement.
Right.
Right. Everything else is 2 bedrooms, 2 baths, no basement.
Right.
Okay, so we're priced at $285. The lowest 2.2 is $270, and our nearest comp is $265. I really want to be priced at $275 to $270. That's really where I want to be. But at $285, we are priced, in my opinion, to where we look like there's the most room to negotiate. The one for $270, you're probably not getting a ton of contingencies there and a ton because you know that bottom line is $265. Right. So the sellers are going to kind of have their heels in the ground. Like, I don't want to get less than the last seller. Right. So you know, as a buyer, you only have $5,000 to swing on that one. Well, that's going to cover your closing, maybe.
There's so much nuance in the market.
It is. It is. Right. And then if you start looking at the other houses, well, why would I pay $280? Because there's some that are listed at $280 with 2 bedroom, 2 bath, no basement. And we're at $285. Why would I pay $280 when I can get a basement for $285? And odds are this one with the basement, my listing is going to negotiate the most because the other one's an in unit. The other one's going to have that mental, oh, I'm worth more. Right. Right. I'm worth more. I'm worth more. So if you're looking for that best deal, we really are the best deal. We have the most room to negotiate in our price point right now. We have something extra. We have that value. We have that value add. The only other unit that's better than us is the in unit. And it's just because it's an in unit. Now we're priced the same. So how do we look better? We either update more, right, or lower that price point. So we'll see. We've got some showings this week. We'll see. Sweet. Fingers crossed. Hopefully next week I'm telling you it's sold.
You know what time it is?
What time is it?
It's time for question quickies. So, okay, this is appropriate. How do I reduce or negotiate my costs when purchasing a home? So I think one of those would be what we were talking about as far as figuring out where that bottom line is and seeing if you can kind of kick up that price to get some of it back in closing.
Well, you don't even have to kick up the price. You don't even have to kick up the price right now. I mean, really, the best way to get a deal in this market is to submit an asshole offer.
Somebody told me that if I don't feel bad about my offer, like if I don't have like a little bit of a, maybe this is too low, then it's probably too high.
You should feel guilty right now. You should feel like an asshole when you're submitting.
But it's like you have to consider your finances and your situation when you get into it.
You have to make a business decision and not an emotional decision is what you have to do.
That's why Lexi hates. She won't admit it, but she hates shopping for houses because she's just like, ooh, this looks really nice.
It's shiny.
And then I'm just like, She's like, what? What is it? What is it? It's like, well, we could just do this house next to it, $30,000 cheaper. Yeah, but it like doesn't have. It's like, but that's $30,000. Like,
right.
We can fix that.
Right. We can add whatever it doesn't have later when we want to afford it instead of have to.
So, but now she's starting to get like, she'll like kind of envision it now. So,
yes. So my biggest piece of advice, make an asshole offer. I mean, make an offer that is so absurd, it doesn't make sense. And if you want to know a good starting point, most homes are moving in the Atlanta market, either unilaterally where they are today. The furthest price drop that I've seen is 24 months back. I have not seen house prices drop anywhere below what they were selling 24 months ago.
Right.
So if you want to be strategic, start 24 months ago in pricing. Don't look at 24 months ago contingencies because people weren't getting a ton of contingencies yet. But look at what the price point homes were selling for that's more than likely where the home should be listed and is a really good entry point.
Right.
And then from there, stand firm on your contingencies and negotiate with the price point. Because to your mortgage, $5,000 more in your mortgage doesn't make a big difference on your monthly payment, but can make a huge difference in your pocket today.
Right. Right. Who pays closing costs when buying or selling a home? Ooh, this one's interesting.
That's everybody.
It's negotiable.
There you go. There you go. So if you're doing a contract, black and white, buyer pays buyer cost, seller pays seller cost. The buyer is going to pay so closing costs consist of a few things. Let's start there, right? You got your loan origination fees, what you pay to the lender, what you pay to the closing attorney, title fees. There are prepaids in there, insurance and taxes. And then as far as other costs paid at closing, sometimes you will see bills for the seller or liens for the seller. So I had a closing yesterday and we had a water bill on there. It was like $36. When I was reviewing the Alta with the seller,
Right.
pointed it out prior to closing. That way they could call the water company and say, hey, listen, we paid you.
Mm-hmm.
Or let the closing attorney know, hey, we paid this. Or if it wasn't paid, make it right. So
Right.
there's a bunch of different line items that are covered at closing.
I like to group them.
Well, so on the contract, we group them all as closing cost and prepaids.
Well, of course. But I'm talking about, I've got the financial brain, so I got to break them all out.
Oh,
So
yes.
it's like liens and
Correct.
judgments.
So that's normally a seller cost.
Right. And then there's escrow or title agent fees.
It's a buyer cost.
Then you have the lender fees.
Buyer cost.
Yep. And then the prepaids. Like you
Buyer
said.
cost.
Yep.
So as far as those things go, I don't know if I've ever negotiated a contract where a buyer would pay a seller's lien off. That sounds dumb.
That's more the investment world.
Probably, and I don't run across that. So I've never
Right.
seen that. I'm sure maybe it happens.
Right.
Maybe it doesn't. The rest of the costs are negotiable. So it can be the buyer or the seller, what is negotiated in the terms of the contract. Two costs that are not negotiable that must come from a certain party. Anything towards the purchase price cannot come from the seller. So the seller cannot give you money to buy the house. They can lower the price,
Oh, I see.
but
Got
they
it.
cannot give you cash.
Right.
Right? So you can't buy a house for $100,000 and need 3% down for an FHA loan and need
And then
$3,000.
gift them $3,000.
Correct. The
Right.
seller
You
can't
do
give
that.
you $3,000 at closing
Okay.
towards your closing costs,
I
right?
guess that's fine.
Correct. Now, obviously, the way to circumvent that is just to get more money towards closing in your
Right.
prepaids and that kind of stuff. The loan is always going to be a buyer cost. Anything that comes forth to the purchase of the purchase price of the house. A buyer can get that as a gift. Okay, so the down payment, right,
But not from the
but
seller.
not from the seller. An expense that cannot be paid for by the buyer is a loan buy down. The buyer can't buy down their own points. That has to come
I
from the
didn't know
seller.
that. I didn't know that. Interesting. Okay.
Mhm. Yep, the buyer has to negotiate that as far as the sell. And there's two ways to buy points down. So there's a 2-1 buy down, not my suggestion. I used it before I knew about the other one, so it's not a bad thing. It's a great thing. But that buys 2 points in the first year and 1 point in the second year. In year number 3, the buyer's loan goes back up to whatever the origination number was, right? So whatever the interest was originally, that's what it's going to go to. So it gives you savings for the first 3 years, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
I like to buy a full point down because at that point you get about 0.5% savings, but it's for the entire term of the loan. And that's a fee that must be paid by the seller and is negotiated on the contract as closing costs and prepaids.
Right.
That's where you negotiate that.
Right. Sweet. Well, that about wraps us up for today's episode of Spill the Tea with Laura and Dee. As always, if you thought this was helpful and or entertaining, hit the heart, send to a friend, and if you have a question for a real estate professional or a real estate flipper, drop us a note below and we'll answer in an upcoming video.
This is light work.